Well, George Chapman is my name anyhow, and I was born in Ferns in 1943, and we moved to Glandorn, where I am at the moment. My father moved when I was a year and a half old, and I've been farming and working on horses and hunting hounds ever since. My father was a smallish man, and he was fond of racing, and in the early days he done a lot of what they called that those days flapper racing. So he was big into racing, and of course he always hunted. And my grandfather was teaching. My grandfather in Ferns was a hunting man as well, way back in those years. I worked horses with a member man, Johnny Green, worked here, and I worked the horses. I never ploughed, but I harrowed and done that with horses as a young kid, and sowed turnips with a horse. I remember we got my father got the horses when the post office horses finished in Dublin. My father got two of them, and I remember well it was Paul and Josephine, horse and the mare, two big strong horses, and we worked them for quite a number of years. And I think Paul even was ridden, although he was a big heavy horse. He was ridden, and he died. He died on the place then. Paul did. We had a great old horse. I think he was nearly a thoroughbred horse called Paddy, and my mother done the shopping every week. Went to Gorey with Paddy every Saturday, and I think my first hunt was on Stevens's Day. Was riding Paddy at 20 years of age, and he was my mother's horse and he done other work around as well, but he was mostly under the cart that my mother went everywhere around the country, wherever she went to visit and so on. She went and in the trap with Paddy. Never wanted for anything. I stayed on the farm and started at the horses from a young age with my late sister Audrey, who was very fond of horses, and we broke young horses and sold them on then for a number of years. When I became master of the shillelaghs, the late Kevin Byrne of Ballinasstraw was a master of the islands, and he was very great with a man who was still alive, Ed O'Driscoll, who was a solicitor in Bandon, and he came up hunting with us one day, and he invited me to judge at Bandon Show, and that was the first year judging, and the very same year I was ridden horses. I can remember well the things that can happen. The following a few weeks later, Clonakilty show was on, and I was invited to judge there. And in those days, the show jumps would be brought in maybe a tractor trailer from show to show, and they'd be tipped up in the middle of the ring, and then they'd be carried around and that. But this heap of show jumps was in the middle of the ring, and I was judging the hunters around the outside. And I got on this horse. You'll always remember these things. I got on this horse that I thought was a bit touchy, and I talked to him and started him off nicely, and I was getting a bit fed up, and I hit him a little step, and the next thing he took a few plunges, and I landed head first into the jumps, and I was stuck in them. I think they had to pull me out by the legs out of the jumps, and I was pouring blood all, my nose was cut and everything. So that is something I can remember always. The love of nice, good-looking horses made me go down that road. I just always liked a good-looking horse. I liked the competition horse as well, but conformation always was a big thing to me, good-looking horses, and that's why I went into the judging in a big way for that reason. And I've judged all over. I've judged in a lot of countries as well. Well, I think being invited all the way to Brazil, which was a 22-hour journey, I got a great kick out of it, and to speak to an interpreter and have to give me reasons why I put A above B and B above C, and I was interviewed for a while, and I got a great kick out of that. I suppose none of the people that were looking on knew what I was saying, but the interpreter was telling them what was happening, so I did enjoy that, I must say. And then I went to Germany and to various countries. I was sure where they I went to a few other countries judging as well, and of course lots of times to England, you know. Some funny things happened about going around judging. I remember judging with, I won't mention the name, about judging and giving out the rosettes, and this man wasn't watching, and he went to the wrong end to give the rosettes out, and he had to go back, and he said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You've been making mistakes all day," he says, judging. In my day, it was a question if somebody that was involved in shows thought a bit about you as a rider, something you were asked to judge, and if you'd done a very bad job, you weren't asked again, and if you'd done well, you were asked again, and as long as when you got popular, then you were asked again and again and again. But now there is training courses, and you have some trainers, and actually Aubrey has done the course for the horse board. He's in the process of doing that now for the stallions and all this. He's partly the way there, and also the Irish Shows runs courses as well. And sure, some of us more senior ones have been doing a bit of training on them around at venues where there was mayor inspections and shows and that's ongoing, which is good to keep the younger people. We have to keep the young people coming on, you know, and they saw that it was declining a little bit, and just trying to encourage the younger people to come on and do it. When I started judging, my father was always into horses, and when I was going to judge at that first show, I had bought my first car, which was my father bought for me a little Mini Minor. And my father said to me going away, he said, "Always remember this, that your Mini Minor with 4 good tyres will bring you all over Ireland. But if you buy a Rolls Royce with 4 bad ones, you might only get down the road." So that was put me thinking that you need a set of legs, the same as you need good tyres on a car. And that will always be the case. I know it has changed now, but if you haven't got a good set of legs on a horse, whether it's a show jumper, an event or anything else, he's not going to last very long with a bad set of legs. So that's where I come into the leg scene. Yeah. I never was going to be in that show jumping. I'd done a lot of novice show jumping, but sure, what would happen that time, they were always sold then when they started showing a bit of promise. The like of Max Howry from Switzerland or somebody else like that come and bought them. So I never got up into any high jumping. Probably maybe I wasn't good enough, but they were always sold because I was a part of the business on the farm. It wasn't I was quite a bit of the income on the farm, even though we had cattle and sheep and tillage, but the horses still played a big part in our income as well. The winter was always made up of hunting, and when it come to the spring, when the hunting finished, there was a little bit of a gap there before the show started that we were a bit lost, to be unhappy that we had nothing going on. And then, of course, the minute the show started, we looked on as a show every week. And then, so in the early days, there was the Gymkhana every Sunday as well. So at the time was made up of a lot of time with the horses, you know. The farming was, my father done more than farming. Yes, I did work on them all the time, but still, horses were number one all the time. I did love breeding sheep and cattle as well, but the horses still came first. Father always had hounds and dogs, a few of them, and hunting around on foot. And I started, of course, that's where I started, on foot, going around with the neighbours, with hounds, with dogs and hounds hunting. And I was a fella which I was very fond of, the late John Collier, he's a long time dead now, and him started hunting a few hounds, small, private pack. And the late Toss Carney, who was chairman of the Shillelaghs, come and invite us to go up and hunt, and that's where I started with the Shillelaghs. Kevin Byrne was master of the islands, and I came in as a joint master with Kevin Byrne and huntsman of the islands. and I went on from there. And then when Kevin passed away, I remained as sole master. I was nobody else with me. The biggest crowd we had on Stephen's Day was always Cranford, and we had 150 in one day. And we got so popular for a while, there was 70 and 80 out on Saturdays, and 50 and 60. And I suppose I was through that I got, you might call, a thick hide for going judging and all the rest, from listening to farmers giving out to me, ringing me up and giving out about you levelled out the place. So I got so used to it, and I think that maybe that gave me thing that I run in one ear and out the other when I was given out to at shows about judging and so on. So it didn't bother me. Modern day hunting is totally different. In those days, you probably would be jumping big banks all day long, and now you're only talking about you're only able to count up the few banks that you got at the end of the day now, because of the modern day with modern farming, the roads through the main. I mean, to me, the biggest thing against the island hunt is the road through the best of the country, all the way down through from Gorey, right down through near enough to Harrow, on down to going for Rosslare, and you're going straight through. When I drive along it now, I see all the big banks we used to jump and the challenges we had at both sides, which you can't go near now. That's all gone. So that's the big changes I see. So we had the best of it from that point of view. But I always say that there's an old saying, what you never had, you never missed. And the younger ones coming on will probably find that what they have, that's the best they can get, and they will go on with it still, you know. But it's not the same as far as I'm concerned. But I still like the hunting and the sound of the hounds, and I will follow around as long as I'm able in car or otherwise. Different masters had different ideas, and they would breed slightly different hounds. But the island hounds were pedigree registered hounds with the Foxhound Association, and they were just, you'd always breed by the best, out of the best, by the best. And also we got a bit interested because of showing horses, interest in showing the hounds in Stradbally. And with the late Billy Connors, we had a couple of good years winning a lot of prizes in Stradbally as well, going back a number of years ago with the hounds. But then, I was always more interested in good hunting hounds more so than show hounds. But still, it was nice to have a few show hounds as well. Billy worked with the late Paddy Kenny, was Liam Kenny, who was the horse trainer beside us now down there. And he came to me then, and he was with me for all through the years. Billy was part of the family. We were like brothers. We went everywhere together. We did everything together. And Billy was a very special fellow as I was concerned, because Billy was an all-around man. He could do any farm work. He could ride a horse to the best, whether it be a show horse. He could show jump well. He done a bit of racing even. He was an all-around man, and Billy was very special. Very self-made. He didn't get a lot of training or anything, but he could break a horse well, ride a horse well, jump a horse well, show a horse well. He was a very special man. I was on the Master of Foxhound Committee for, I suppose, maybe 15 to 20 years. I became chairman then for, I think, 3 years I done chairman. And then things happened, and like a lot of hunts we had, probably were maybe there too long, and there was a little bit of disagreements, and I gave up the scene then. Dublin is the grand finale of all the showing during the year, and sure, it means everything, to be sure. I live my life going to it, and Dublin means everything to me. And some years we had 7 and 8 horses up, and we very seldom have less than 5 or 6. So and they don't be all prize winners, but sure, we go along with them anyhow and hope to win. We probably had quite a good year last year. by winning the cup for the most prize winners. So that was very nice to get that. I think the earliest memory is, I brought a 3-year-old horse, 50, I don't, 55 years ago, maybe more. And that was my first memory. And I don't think I've missed more than one show since. So every year then, I got the bug for going, and every year since then, I've been there. It was a 3-year-old brown horse by a well-known thoroughbred horse at the time called Gyps, or some people called him Gypsy. He was by him. He was bred locally by an old lady called Miss Pratt, and I showed him around at local shows and won a few places and brought him on to Dublin then. And actually, I kept him on and broke him, and I was the first time I got a trip to America with him. The following year I sold him and got a trip to America, and had a lot of trips to America after with horses. That was my first one. In 1979 then we brought the heavyweight and the middleweight, Zatopec and Grenadier. And Billy rode Grenadier and I rode Zatopec. And they both went on to win the middleweight and heavyweight championship, and then went on to be Supreme Champion and Reserve Supreme. Oh, sure, it meant everything, meant the world to me. Sure, I couldn't believe it, because sure, I had always dreamed about winning in Dublin, and to do that was something special. A couple of years later, I bought a nice 3-year-old and broke him then, and brought him back as a 4-year-old, and he was middleweight champion and Reserve Supreme. And I had said I was going to keep him on till next year, but the army came in and gave me a good price for him. And actually, he was never going to be a top show jumper, and they sold him to Libya, and I got a trip with him to Libya the following 2 years later. So that was a great thing to get out there and get a trip with him. And then sure went on. I had the Bioway was another middleweight. It was mostly middleweights. Bioway was another horse belonged to the late Carmel Byrne. I had him, and he was reserve champion. Just got pipped on the post for Supreme as well. And a couple of years later, I bought a big heavyweight dun horse, and he went on to be heavyweight champion at Dublin, and again Supreme, Reserve Supreme. So I got pipped every time for the Supreme, and I had various 3-year-olds then that won classes, and that time the late Rosemary Screen used to lead the young horses for us, and with a few winners down along there. And sure, we've been trying for a lot of years since to win, and probably the nearest I got to in the championship, we had something in the main arena nearly every year, but was reserve middleweight champion. We've had a lot of good years in Dublin, but then we've had the bad years as well, but sure, everyone will have them. And for a lot of years, we often went with 8 and 10 horses, and we'd come home maybe with only 2. That was the years before the sales got popular, and Dublin was the sale ring, and out there in that paddock, we'd be in the evening times, we'd be out showing our wares, trying to sell them, and we sold a lot of horses in Dublin in those years. But that's all over now, except for the few special ones. The sales have took that over. I had great respect for the late Michael Hickey. I tried to mould myself a bit on. I wasn't. He was a lovely dandy horseman, a lighter man than me, but I always had great respect. He won so many times, and the other man that, of course, that started it was the late Galway Greer, who won a lot in Dublin, and he inspired me a bit. I think one of the second animal I owned was a mare, and I sold her to Lady Connolly Carew before Dublin, and she went on and won in Dublin, and that gave me a bit more aspiration to go and win in Dublin myself. I had sold her beforehand. I probably needed the money, and then Galway Greer used to come to the yard looking, and he gave me a bit of encouragement and advice on showing and what to do and all the rest. So between Galway Greer first and then Michael Hickey, I think would be my main ones going back as a young man. I rode I was always maybe a bit too heavy for point to pointing, but I did ride down in the Island Hunt point to point, and I broke my collarbone and was carted off to Wexford Hospital. So that was the end of that. A big part in my life was when I met Pam, who was Pam Stacey, who was as keen on the horses as me, and she has worked at them hard. She's still working away at feeding them and everything else, and she was very successful. She loved her hunting, and she was very successful showing as well. She won a lot of prizes around the country and won a few times, won classes in Dublin and won the side saddles in Dublin even. So she had quite a good career ahead as well, and that was great for me to see that happening. You know, for Pam to be so interested, and then for Aubrey to come on then and get keen on showing horses as well, and to win. He won on a pony, 14-2 show pony. That was his first win, and then I bought him a small hunter a couple of years later, and he won in Dublin on him, and that's where he's gone on now to showing the way again. And I enjoy seeing that happen now when I'm not able to do it anymore. See, Wayne was giant master with me for a couple of years, and he gave up. He kind of went away from the riding then. So Wayne there's a photograph. Wayne was wearing a pink coat in Dublin with the hounds that year, and he was a giant master, and Billy was there. So I'd forgotten about Wayne, because he just is, even though he's showing, sure he'll be leading one of the. He likes to lead now, but Wayne hasn't ridden for years. Sure, he's in the thoroughbreds and he's on the transport. He's on the road all the time, and he went very much into the thoroughbreds. But he shows. He likes showing. Unless you have all these other, maybe the word gimmicks is not right, you have to have all the different things to suit everybody, to get a crowd, to keep a show going. So the horse end of it will not pay big money at the gates, because most of the people are going in are not maybe only exhibitors or something. Well, there's always have a few followers, but you need the crowds to keep the shows alive. That you have to have all these things like Bano and Tinnahealy have now to get a good gate. Horses alone will not bring a big enough crowd. They'll only bring the horse people themselves. You know, the first show was when we were desperate for showing with the COVID, and nobody was running shows, and we said we're going to stick our neck out and run a show, and we run a show there. Then we were supposed to have masks and all the rest. Was a lot of people were maybe not very happy that we run it, and then the large amount thought we were great to run it. So that's what got us going at the show. Actually, that year that we run it first was a fantastic year, because we had people stayed here from the top of Donegal to the bottom of Cork. They came from all over, desperate to get to a show, of course, because there was no show. I am chairman of our local branch of the drafts, the Wexford branch, and I like draft horses because they're our native breed, and I think they're important because they're easy to ride, and I've always been a great believer in having a horse to suit all types of riders. I never would be just aiming for the one type of horse. Listen, we all dream about the top show jumper and the top eventer, but a lot of that can be a dream. And I'd be realistic to say this. I'd be trying to breed horses that would suit all types of market. And I think the draft still plays. Yes, they're not going to bring this enormous big 100,000 that odd ones get, which are very scarce, but they're still very much a part of the whole Irish scene. The Connemara is a great little animal, because they were always bred to be an all-rounder. They're a sound little animal, good bone, and I have great respect for Connemara's. And over the years, if I heard of a big horse and there was a big Connemara in him, I would rush to see him, because you could guarantee he'd be a good performer at whatever job he was bred for, with the big Connemara in the background. I would love horses with a big Connemara in the background. The drafts and the Connemaras will always play a big part in the Irish horse. I was a bit anti-ist, but a few years ago they invited a few to go to out to Germany. They thought it was the horse board thought it was necessary to move on up with the times and see. So they went to Germany, and I didn't go on that team, but I don't know, Philip Scott, that was, I don't know, many went. And then we had anyone interested, we went to Ors and Uachtaráin to the Irish Draft Yard, and we were showing videos of all the different things of the linear scoring. And it's a bit different, but having said that, I've got used to it now, and it doesn't bother me. There was probably a few things about horses uphill, downhill, and long backs and dip backs and so on, which is slightly different to what we had in the old-fashioned hunting horse, you know. But a few different modern. But I've got used to it now, and as I say, I was always a believer you had to move with the times. You were only fooling yourself to think that you could stay and not move on with the times. And that have been part of my life always. And now that I'm 80 years of age, I still am happy to say we have to move with the times, or else get out of the scene completely. That's my thoughts on the scene. And of course that's where I suppose you get a big variation in horses winning at some shows and down the line in other shows. But also, I think what happens, the perfect horse don't exist. There's no such thing as the perfect horse. But everyone have their own little pet things about a horse. Some things, a certain type of movement, more if they have a little dister, a movement they're out, more like all presence, and so on. And the different judges will have the stronger emphasis on things, and that's where you get the changes about. And I suppose you have to have those changes. But having said that, normally the nearest to the perfect one comes out on top very often. Whereas you get big changes in a moderate lot of horses, as I say, because of this thing of each judge having their own pet type of point that they're very strong on, you know. There's an old saying, the judge's decision is final on the day, and you must, listen, it's very hard to keep your tongue between your cheeks at times. You would love to voice opinions when you're on the sideline looking, and there's times I always tell a little quick story about the late Marshall Parkhill and a very well-known character down here, Sonny May. They were in a certain place one day, and this I was a vet that was doing this, but looking at a horse, and Marshall said to Sonny, "What's he looking for there, Sonny?" Sonny said, "Marshall, I don't know what he's looking for, but there's one thing I do know." And he said, "What's that?" "If he finds it, he won't know what it is." And there is a little bit of that goes on still. There is times you see people looking for at all business looking things, and I would know in my heart and soul that they wouldn't know what they were looking for. And that's where you get annoyed, but listen, that's the part of the whole scene. There's always sport horses, but now with Wayne and Aubrey, Wayne has 7 or 8 thoroughbred mares, not over successful, but he's breeding some of them to half-bred horses, and of course I'm breeding, Aubrey and myself are breeding the half-bred. So at the moment there's probably about 17 or 18 mares here breeding, half-breds and thoroughbreds. Well, everyone is trying to breed this international event or show jumper, and it's all off of paper, and there's no matching up mares and stallions anymore. And while I know it didn't always work. You could go around the country, that you know what your mare was, and look for the stallion that had, if she had a little bad point on her, and you tried to get a stallion that hadn't. It didn't always work, but that's how you'd worked at it, and maybe out of a few you get one that would work on. But you would be trying that. But that's all gone now. There's no such thing. The modern breeder is breeding from out of a mare that have maybe be able to win, and by a stallion that has been a winner. So that's doing away a little bit with the real show horse now as such, you know. Everyone's looking at pedigrees, but having said that, you go to Gore's Bridge and all those dealers and buyers are there, and they are looking for a fairly good model of a horse still, you know, which defeats what you wonder what's the main people are saying. A lot of young fellas will say, oh, you're old fashioned, you're looking for that horse is gone. But yet go to Gore's Bridge and they're trotting them up looking for straight movers, and they're looking at the limbs and all the rest. So, you know, yes, you can breed this good horse that has falls and a great jumper, and you keep him a stallion, and you breed a mare that done the same, and she falls. Well, the next generation are certainly going to have more falls, and as you go down, what are you going to end up with? Your confirmation is gone, and that's why I think at least showing keeps the confirmation alive. Whereas if showing is gone, confirmation is gone, and I think the limbs of a horse could go downhill in a big way then as well. To live as long as I can and stay interested in the lads in Aubrey and Wayne to carry on the same thing, and I say a few hounds around the place to keep me amused, and some nice horses is what I want for the last few years I have.